On the 18th of July 2016 at around 9:45 p.m., James Musimi heard the screams of a woman coming from his neighbor's house in Ilinge village, Machakos County. When the screams continued, he called his friend Makau and they cautiously approached the compound to investigate. Upon reaching the house, they found the door half open. Makau walked in and saw a severed hand on the floor and their neighbor, 27-year-old Jackline Mwende, lying in a pool of blood with severe cuts. Her other hand was partially chopped off and she cried for help as she was drifting in and out of consciousness. The two men raised the alarm and called other neighbors for help. Despite her pain, Jackline was able to name her attacker, 34-year-old Stephen Ngila, her husband of 5 years. Jackline was rushed to the hospital and the incident quickly became one of the most shocking cases of gender-based violence in the nation and the world. Jackline Mwende, born to Samuel and Jane Munyoki, is the fourth-born in a family of 6. She sat for her KCPE exams in Mitini Primary School but failed to proceed to secondary school due to the lack of school fees. A few years later, she met Stephen Ngila at a local SDA church in Masi, Machakos County, where she served as a youth leader, and it was love at first sight. Originally from Kalawa, Makueni County, Stephen moved to Masi town after his parents passed away and opened a tailoring shop. Jackline described him as a kind and God-fearing man who taught her how to make clothes and dresses. 3 months after meeting, they got married in a colorful church ceremony. The couple bought a plot of land in Matunge village, built a house, and moved in together. Stephen continued his tailoring business and opened a small general shop for Jackline. They lived happily until a major challenge cropped up in their marriage. Years went by without them having a child. Jackline revealed that after 5 years of marriage, Stephen's family started pressuring and blaming her for not having children. They accused her of either refusing or being unable to provide them with grandchildren, with some even saying that Stephen had married a fellow man who could only eat and use the toilet. They urged him to marry another woman who could bear children. This caused friction between their families. Jackline noticed that Stephen started changing. He turned to drinking and became emotionally distant. He constantly nagged her about not having a baby, and she felt victimized as all the blame fell on her. Stephen started going home drunk, and when questioned, he would physically assault his wife, telling her that he was with his fellow men and that she should stop asking him questions. Neighbors reported that their fights were so bad that the chief and local leaders tried to intervene and cancel them multiple times. Having had enough, Jackline sought the services of their pastor, who I'll refer to as Pastor K, of SDA Church Katoloni to help resolve their issues. By then, the couple disclosed that they were sleeping in separate rooms. Jackline slept on a couch in the sitting room, while Stephen slept in the bedroom. Stephen stated that he was not ready to continue living with Jackline, whom he alleged was disobedient and unable to bear children. The pastor, together with the church elders, asked Stephen to stop drinking and advised the couple to go to the hospital to seek medical assistance on their fertility issues. The couple went to the Nairobi hospital and all hell broke loose when it was discovered that Stephen was the one with the fertility problem. Jackline, on the other hand, was given a clean bill of health. Stephen was impotent, but his ailment was treatable. The doctors advised him to attend clinical sessions so that they could start trying to solve the issue. Jackline described the diagnosis as the genesis of their domestic wars. She said, quote, "The issue was like a bomb that had been lodged into our marriage, ready to explode. The situation worsened to the point where he went on drinking sprees just to forget the challenge that was hanging on his shoulder. My husband became irresponsible. All the money he earned, he channeled to drinking. He became brutal, and on some occasions, our arguments turned violent." Stephen refused to take part in the treatments the doctor prescribed. Jackline and Pastor K tried to get him to go, but he refused. She said, quote, "When I reminded him about attending the clinic, he would dismiss it and demand we change the subject. Other times, he would promise to go but later change his mind. He never attended even once." Stephen eventually moved out of their home and rented a bedsitter in Masii town, but he would occasionally return, leading to arguments that often turned violent. Pastor K tried to reconcile them, but as things worsened, he informed the church leadership, and a committee was formed to address the issue. Stephen was unhappy with Jackline's disclosure of their problems to the church and insisted he was not ready to continue living with her. Jackline sought help from their families, hoping to bring peace to their marriage. She discovered that Stephen had not told his family that he was the one with a fertility problem. She said, quote, "His family grew increasingly intolerant and still believed I was incapable of bearing children." Stephen told their families that he wanted Jackline to leave their home and return to her parents' house for failing to bear him a child. Jackline's mother pleaded with her to leave the abusive marriage, but Jackline insisted he would change. She said, quote, "My parents advised me to pack my belongings and leave him, but I didn't listen. I didn't want to return home and be a burden, especially since I was supporting them. My pastor advised me to stand my ground and do my best to save my marriage. I wanted to safeguard my marriage at all costs, so I decided to stay with him, hoping things would improve. But they only got worse. He didn't heed anyone's advice." Pastor K offered to accompany Stephen to the clinic visits to try and save their marriage, but Stephen told him that he could live without children and that if Jackline wanted children so badly, she could go and get a child elsewhere. Pastor K told the Daily Nation that Stephen was not ready to mend the union and was determined to leave. He added that Jackline didn't want to be seen as the one who broke her marriage. He said, quote, "It was agreed that they live in peace in their separate homes, and asked the courts to dissolve the marriage, because as a church, we don't end marriages." On July 16, 2016, around 7 a.m., Stephen went to their matrimonial home on his motorcycle and knocked on the door. At this point, they had been living separately for 3 months. When Jackline refused to open, he went to their neighbor's house, then returned to pick up his bike and left without speaking to her. 2 days later, on July 18, 2016, at around 9:45 p.m., Jackline was home alone doing chores when she heard a knock on the door. When she hesitated, the person called her by name. Recognizing her husband's voice, she decided to open the door, only to be met with a swinging panga.
Alipokuja kwa nyumba, Manly ndio nilisikia akigonga mlango akiniambia, "Hey Jackie, nifungulie." Niliachana na chakula nilikuwa nakula, nikaamka nikaenda nikamfungulia. Kitambo nimfungulie ndio nikata hii mkono. Nikaanguka hapo chini na akanifuruta nikaenda nikaanguka huko chini. Kitambo nianguka huko chini alikuwa ananikata kichwa na mikono na uso na akanidunga hapa na kisu na hiyo panga alikuwa nayo.
Jackline recounted that things seemed to be happening rather fast, but she recalled asking her husband if he was going to kill her.
Nilimuuliza, "Kwa nini Ngila unanichapa? Utaniua peke yako?" Akanyamaza akaniambia, "Leo ndio siku yako ya kuongea, hautaongea tena maishani."
Jackline fell on the floor as Stephen continued his attack on her. Stephen started hitting her face and head as she frantically pleaded with her husband to spare her life. She started screaming for help and lost consciousness. Her attacker vanished into the darkness just as he had come. Jackline told the court that when she regained consciousness, she found 2 people standing over her. Soon, her neighbors filled the small room she was in. They used torches to assess the situation as the house did not have electricity. At first, they thought she was dead, but when they saw signs of life, they called the assistant chief, the police, and an ambulance. When police arrived, they asked Jackline who had attacked her. She told them it was her husband, Stephen Ngila. She was then rushed to Machakos Level 5 Hospital. Doctors said she sustained a traumatic brain injury as well as injuries to her elbows, forehead, waist, neck, and both hands. As a result, doctors had to amputate both of her hands below the elbow. On top of being mutilated, she was left with head injuries and is now deaf in one ear. The next day, at 8 a.m., Stephen Ngila, along with some of his family members, arrived at the Machakos Level 5 Hospital where Jackline was admitted. He wanted to see her, but the doctors denied him access as they were still attending to her. 3 hours later, at 11 a.m., police arrived and arrested him. 34-year-old Stephen Ngila was arraigned at the Wamunyu Law Courts and charged with attempted murder. He denied the charges and was remanded at the Machakos GK Remand Prison, awaiting his bail hearing. Jackline was admitted at the Machakos Level 5 Hospital for 2 weeks, then she was taken to Kikuyu Mission Hospital in Kiambu County, where she stayed for a month. After getting discharged, Jackline went to live with her parents at their home in Kathama Village, Machakos County, which was approximately 8 kilometers from her marital home. Around that time, news of the incident had spread far and wide, with several leaders and activist groups coming forward to offer help. The Machakos County government pledged to give Jackline 30,000 shillings monthly for a year, offered free medical care and counseling until she fully recovers, pledged to provide a housekeeper paid for by the county for a year, and contributed 100,000 shillings for Jackline's immediate needs. FIDA, which is the Federation of Women Lawyers in Kenya, also offered their legal services for the duration of the case. However, Jackline suffered a legal blow as the courts shockingly released Stephen on a 200,000 shilling bail. Jackline later told reporters that whenever he met her or any of her relatives, he would brag that the court case would bear no fruit. She said, quote, "He would tell us that his aunties sold parcels of land to hire him a lawyer who they supposedly paid 500,000 shillings and would win the case. But I was not scared because I knew God was my lawyer." As they awaited trial, well-wishers continued to support her. LG Electronics Marketing General Manager Moses Marji pledged that the company would take care of Jackline's surgery and medical expenses, as well as counseling and handling her transportation costs at PCA Kikuyu Hospital. LG went a step further and paid for a 10-day medical trip to Seoul, South Korea, where Jackline was fitted with prosthetic hands. Merck, a German pharmaceutical company, through their More Than a Mother campaign, built Jackline a 2-bedroomed house complete with solar panels and a water tank, and opened a shop to help her and her family achieve financial independence during her recovery.
Ni watu wengi waliambia watanisaidia, lakini Maka walifanya chenye walisema watafanya. Wakanijengea nyumba ikaisha, wakaniwekea business, wakaweka stock, kwa nyumba wakaninunulia viti, niko na fridge, niko na kabati, niko na TV na angalianga news, niko na fridge na gas cooker. Maisha yangu inaendelea mzuri na nashukuru Mark sana na sana zaidi, na waendelee na kusaidia wengine kama mimi.
Jackline said that she had forgiven her husband, but she still wanted justice to be served. At trial, Stephen Ngila testified in court that their marital problems were not due to infertility but adultery. He accused Jackline of cheating on him with multiple men and that she was pregnant at the time of the hearing. He added that her behavior was dangerous because some of the men would beat him up. He said he moved out of their marital home for about 3 months because his wife was away all the time. Stephen said that on the day of the crime, he was with his uncle James, who was a cobbler at Masii Market, where he was working the whole day since their businesses are next to each other. In the evening, they left for James's home because he had a dowry negotiation meeting that day with his brother and other family members from 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. By then, he said he did not know where Jackline was. At 10 p.m., Stephen said he received a call from Florence Masika, who asked where he was. When he informed her, Florence told him that Jackline had been hurt at their matrimonial home. Upon getting the report, he thought of going to the house but decided to go to the police. However, Florence informed him that the police had responded and taken Jackline to Machakos Level 5 Hospital. He therefore decided to go to the hospital the following day in the company of his family members, where he was arrested at 11 a.m. Jackline denied the pregnancy and infidelity allegations in court. However, in early 2017, while the trial was ongoing, Jackline made a confession to the Daily Nation. She said that she desperately wanted a child for herself and partly because she wanted to save her marriage. At that time, she had been living alone and separated from her husband for 3 months. She said she reached out to a longtime friend who she chose to keep anonymous, and they agreed to have a one-night stand for the sole purpose of getting pregnant. A day before the attack, they met up and sought accommodations in Machakos town because she did not want to bring him into her marital bed. After spending the night with him, they parted ways as per the agreement, and she went home. She said that after the attack, she found out that Stephen had asked her neighbors to spy on her and that they were the ones who told him of her rendezvous with her male friend, prompting him to viciously attack her. Her plan was successful, and she got pregnant. She said that she regretted deceiving everyone, stating, quote, "It was wrong to do it, and I know people will judge me harshly for it, but I am remorseful because I was desperate. Knowing that I am alive today, and that I will be a mother soon, is a silver lining in the middle of all the heartache and gloom." 9 months after the attack, Jackline gave birth to her baby boy and named him Gift. She said, quote, "I was insulted and abused for not giving birth in my marriage. I believed it was not my fault. I wanted a child so bad, so as to save my marriage. That is why I went out and God gifted me a son, like his name." In court, Stephen used Jackline's pregnancy as part of his defense, saying that he did not know who the father of her child was, and it was proof of his allegations that she had been having several affairs. He also called her out for lying to the court about being pregnant. As the trial progressed, some of Stephen's family members testified that he was with them at the supposed dowry negotiations on the night of the murder. However, when questioned about the location of the meeting, they gave different answers. In addition, detectives from the forensic team presented data that showed that Stephen and Jackline's phones were at the same place at the time of the attack. The prosecution also pointed out that Jackline survived the attack and was able to identify him as her attacker. On February 9, 2021, 5 years after the attack, Stephen Ngila was found guilty of attempted murder. Senior Magistrate Brenda Bato noted that Stephen showed no remorse for his crime.
The court noted that the accused person was not remorseful for the offense convicted of. The court notes that the offense committed was grave, and the victim in the statement does not wish for any restitution. For that reason, I therefore proceed and sentence you for the offense of attempted murder, contrary to section 220A of the Penal Code, that you will serve imprisonment of 30 years.
Stephen appealed his sentence, arguing that it was excessive for a first-time offender. However, in 2021, the High Court rejected his appeal and upheld the 30-year sentence. Jackline, who was in court, expressed satisfaction with the court's decision. She sobbed as she spoke to the reporters, saying, quote, "I thank the court, but God will punish him more because I had hands and now I live with a disability. I won't forget that God is the one who gives children." She acknowledged that her life had changed after becoming disabled, but was grateful to be alive. In a later interview, she advised people in abusive relationships to leave at the first sign of violence. In April 2021, Jackline opened up about her struggles. In an interview, she talked about her physical suffering, the shame of relying on her parents, and her inability to care for her only son. She said, quote, "When I had my hands, I used to do everything for myself. Now I have to rely on my mother to feed, wash, and dress me." Jackline still bore resentment towards Stephen, stating that his sentence isn't enough. She said, quote, "He will serve his term, and when 30 years are done, he will come out and rebuild his life with both hands, an opportunity that he stole from me." She also shared her fear of getting into another intimate relationship or marriage after her traumatic experience, focusing instead on rebuilding her life. Her mother has had to stay home to care for Jackline and her son, leaving the farm duties to her aging husband. She said, quote, "I gave Stephen my daughter, who was complete and well. And now she doesn't have hands. I hope the government doesn't release him. If he is let go, I will die of depression. Jackline blames herself for her parents' high blood pressure. She revealed that she stopped using her prosthetic hands as they were not practical for daily tasks. The fingers don't stretch, preventing her from working, and she said she can't cook or wash herself because she can't expose her prosthetic hands to heat and water. Her father explained that the prosthetic hands use rechargeable batteries. He thanked LG Electronics for providing a battery charger and a generator, but said he often had to charge the batteries in Masii town where there was electricity. Despite the support she received, Jackline criticized the Machakos County government for not fulfilling their promise of a monthly stipend for a year and a housekeeper. Jackline disclosed that the shop she was running in Masii town, supported by the Mark Foundation, was robbed and ultimately collapsed at the height of COVID-19, leaving her without an income. She said, quote, "I live on painkillers. I often suffer headaches and pain in my arms. I don't have money to buy the medicine I need and can barely afford the painkillers." She also mentioned that her son, who is old enough for school, was at home because there was no money for his education. Jackline asked the public for help, saying, quote, "I'm calling on well-wishers, all those touched by my story, to help me. I need to get to a clinic, see a doctor, and buy medicine. I need money to educate my son so that he goes to school like other children. And I need some capital for a business to offload the burden from my parents." If you or anyone you know is experiencing gender-based violence, please reach out to organizations such as Usikimye or FIDA, which is the Federation of Women Lawyers in Kenya, that provide free legal aid to women and their children. If you'd like to know more about them or offer your support, you could reach out to them on their website or social media pages. So I haven't been able to get Jackline's current contact information in case some of you would like to help her out, but when I do, I will pin it in the comments. Thank you so much for listening and watching until the end. I would like to know your thoughts on this case. Feel free to comment, but remember to be respectful and mindful of your words. I'd also like to thank all 4,910 of you for interacting and subscribing to my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Faith Njoroge, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!